What up, my beautiful minions? It's the Dungeon Master back with another video. I'm going to show you this week how I made this awesome thing. The first ever Patreon poll for my patrons over on my Patreon page. These guys chose what I was going to make this month, and this month it's the Meso-American Temple, aka, in my world, Temple of the Serpent Queen. I'll show you how I made it, coming right up. Hey, welcome back everybody. So last week we covered a lot of stuff, and I tried to make this video a little bit shorter so that I could just show you the cool parts. And one of the things that I did recently is I picked up a set of the Citadel skulls, and I wanted to try making some skull piles. So I grabbed some aluminum foil. I had tried some clay and stuff at first, but I didn't want to have to bake it before attaching the skulls. So I just took some tin foil and kind of made little mounds out of it, and then just hot glued a bunch of skulls to it. And it took forever because I had to cut out a bunch of skulls from this, and I used almost a whole sprue of human skulls. And I kind of regret going so overboard with it, but in the end it looks really cool. So I figured it's worth it, I guess, just for that use of those particular models on the sprue. I found these particularly, they were just really catching for me. I loved how detailed they were. Just the amount that you get for the money. I'm gonna buy another set just so I have a bunch of them on hand. It was really cheap too. It was only $20 for the box. It was so worth it just to have them. And that's not even half of what I used for this whole project. Each one of these little piles, I made 7 of them. Only 6 of them made it into the video. I made an extra one just in case something went wrong. But I used probably 100 skulls for the whole thing. Some of them took more than 10. Some of them took more than 15 to fill. Each one of them is individual, though. Not one of them looks exactly the same, which I felt lends to the realism of the piece quite a bit. On this one, I'm going to use this for the decoration on the small portion, the small building that goes on top. I just trimmed the flashing off of it and black bombed everything with some black spray paint after it was all glued together. And now I'm going to break out my brown texture paste, which I hadn't used since I made the burial mound. I know you saw that video 2 weeks ago, the second part of that, but I made that video back in December, so this paste hasn't been used since the burial mound and the trees that I made. Oh, and the campsite. Those 3-4 videos were the last time I used this stuff, and it kept really well. I just wet my brush a little bit before I put it back into the pot, and it came out really well. I really like using this stuff on my ground for texture. It's just a mixture of brown paint, joint compound, PVA glue, a little bit of distilled water, not a whole hell of a lot of that, and some sand. It's a really simple recipe. I got it from Luke's APS. He never really, as far as I know, gave a detailed description on how to make it. He just mentioned it in passing in a video or two. But the recipe was pretty easy to figure out. It just came down to mixing all of the things together in a proportion that you find pleasing. In my case, it was heavy on the joint compound, heavy on the dirt, and then I mixed in the PVA glue and the paint until it had a decent consistency. You'll notice I stipple a lot with the brush on this joint compound stuff. It's because I really want it to not lay flat. If it has a tendency, the water has a tendency to rise to the surface, as it dries and it kind of smooths out. So I let it sit for a little bit, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then I go back and hit it with my brush. Let it sit for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then go back and dab it with the brush again so that it gets a texture I like. And here you can see I'm just dry brushing a khaki color, the same that I use for the base coat on all the other pieces, over the top of the dirt. And then I'm going to start putting watered down glue on the base to put down my grass flock. I decided to try to use a pipette for some reason this time instead of a brush, and it worked okay, but I feel like it made it way too wet, so next time I'm just going to go back to using a nasty old brush to put the stuff on. And it doesn't even have to be a nasty old brush because the paint is so watered down it rinses right out. I used the pipette to suck up a bunch of the bubbles that came from using it. That was probably the main reason why I didn't really care for using it. Not so much the wateriness of it. I feel like I had to use a lot more flock than I would have if I had used the brush, but the damn bubbles that came out, they were a bitch to deal with. So next time I'm just gonna go back to using a brush. It's a little more controllable. I can see the value in using a pipette for certain spaces that are hard to reach, but none of this was hard to reach, so it was kind of pointless. But it was an experiment, well worth venturing into, and I learned a new technique from it, so I know what it's good for, and not so much what it's not good for now. My little lined up miniature painting tool, I like to use double-sided tape, like I said in the last video a lot. I just stuck the pieces to it, and I was trying to get a little bit of a darker color. I used a burnt sienna to get into the recesses to try to get the cracks, because originally I had intended on painting each of the skulls individually with an ivory color like I'm doing here, painting them each individually on the skull piles, but eventually I got tired of painting them all, so I just said the hell with it and just started slathering the stuff on there, and I figured I'd hit them with a wash, and that worked fine. But if you want, you can paint all of them individually. I'm not much of a miniature painter. I don't do squads or armies or anything like that, and I get bored so easily doing stuff like that, and I really envy people that have the patience to do that kind of stuff, because I don't. So just like before on the previous video, I watered down my paint a little bit with my homemade medium and just slathered it all over here. I'm just using a Craft Smart ivory color, which is off-white enough to definitely give the appearance of bone. Bone is not pure white. Sometimes it's even a little bit more brown than this, but this ivory works really well. The Citadel bone colors work very well too. My favorite personally is I forgot the exact name of the color, but it's a Army Painter Skeletal White or something like that I really enjoy using, which I have to get again because I have to restock my entire collection of model paints, which I still haven't done. And I'm just giving everything a sepia wash because I felt the sepia would stand out a little bit better than the brown on these. And decided to just use this, trying out a new super glue to use here for this that worked out pretty well. Something a little bit more, a little less cost effective than dollar store super glue, but all the same, that was a liquid super glue as opposed to the gel, which I use for different applications. And again, with the damn pipette, it made it way too wet. You can see it just pooled. I mean, it's solid. It came out hard as a rock. You can't kill this thing now. You could never get that thing off of there, but too messy. Not for me. Not for that, anyway. And there's a little embellishment that I wanted to add to the interior of the building. Since you have a trapdoor going down, it seemed kind of odd to just have the room on the interior. How do you get there, and how do you get back out? So I decided it would be reachable with a ladder. So I just cut up some barbecue skewers here, and made a small ladder out of it, about 3 inches long, 3 1/4 inches long, something like that. Just used some super glue, and then black bombed it, painted it brown, and used the same color scheme with the suede that I used on the trapdoor. You'll notice a little bit of white laying over those. That's because I tried to be a smart guy and use my homemade activator, which is not even homemade, it's just Windex. Windex does activate super glue, but it frosts the hell out of it, unlike professional grade activators. And while that was all drying and setting up after priming, I decided to take another page from the Black Magic Craft playbook and make some homemade moss, just using some white PVA and some green flock. Worked brilliantly. It's a great technique that Jeremy knows his shit. He knows what he's doing, and I've learned a lot from watching his channel. I highly recommend you check it out. If for some odd reason you're watching my channel and don't know about his, check out Black Magic Craft on YouTube. And I slathered this stuff all over the base of it. I didn't get so much on the top. I didn't see moss growing more towards the top. The stairs maybe, because they'd be obscured by shade more than the sides would. But I used less towards the top and more towards the bottom. I felt that was more realistic. I just used a regular brush to get that on there. It rinsed off pretty well. It's just PVA glue. I don't feel like that ruins the brush. At least if you rinse it off thoroughly every so often while you're painting with it, you're not going to get glue all stuck in the brush, because it's water soluble, especially with the PVA. So in my opinion, there's not much to worry about there. Eventually it will trash a brush. I wouldn't use like a fancy Citadel brush or a Kolinsky Sable with PVA glue. I think that would be a pretty big waste of a brush, but still, it's not going to ruin a brush. I mean, you can put this stuff on really thick. You can see here, I just absolutely glued this stuff on the side of this little building here and worked it around until it looked nice. And when it dried, hard as a rock, I didn't even seal this piece. Well, that's not true. I sealed it before I did all the embellishments to it. I sealed it with a polyurethane, and it's bulletproof. You're not going to kill this thing. I hit the inside a little bit. Doesn't make much sense logistically, but it's a little something to break up the monotony of it. I don't see moss really growing on the interior so much, but I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's happened. As I mentioned in the previous video in part 1, sometimes I'll set something aside and let it cure, let it dry or whatever while I work on something else. Just try to maximize my time, especially now with the job. I've really got to try to use my craft time efficiently, or I'll never get a video done and I'll never finish a project. That's why I've banked several projects to use. If for some reason I break equipment or I get sick or something else happens, it's good to have a backup plan anyway. I just attached the ladder using some good old hot glue. It stuck. It was going on the inside of something, so I didn't feel like it was going to show up once I pushed it in. And here I decided to grab myself some Army Painter grass tufts, and I gotta say, I've never used these. I never tried to use them in the past. I never really I built terrain and stuff, but it was always more of the DM Scotty stuff with the cardboard and such, and doing the extreme DIY, and I never tried to go for this kind of realism until I started doing this style, and I love these things. I made some paper minis for a friend and myself for a home game, and I based them with texture and grass tufts and everything, and for paper miniatures they look fantastic. And I actually love using these things. I want to get some different colors of them. I have the green and I have the wasteland, but I want to get like the forest color. I want to try a couple different brands too. That WWS stuff looks pretty good, and I want to try making my own of these. I really want to get a static grass applicator, or make my own, because that appeals to me too, making my own equipment. I made my own foam cutter, so I plan on getting a Proxon at some point, but first I want to upgrade the camera and get some better footage. I'm just dipping them in some PVA glue. I originally started using super glue with these, but in my impatience, I think super glue for some applications, especially if it frosts over, it's just awful. And here we're looking at the finished product. Those lights came from another YouTuber. I copied his idea, this really kick-ass channel that I'll link in the card, Landvader's Lair, and the dude makes some really fantastic terrain pieces, and he has some really great videos and tutorials. You can see the Marlith that I was talking about in the intro. I painted her ages ago. She's just a Reaper mini. I might do a tutorial on those torches at some point, but for now, just suffice to say, they're just LEDs and water bottle caps and CR 2032 batteries. Pretty much just based like a miniature. A little bit of cotton on top with some black spray paint. I love this piece. I'm in love with it. I spent a lot of time on it, and I had a blast making it. It was so quick how fast it came together. It only took me, like a week and a half to make, compared to the burial mound that took me almost a month. So it was a definite improvement over that, for sure. Thanks everybody for watching. This was a really fun project, and it went a hell of a lot quicker than the burial mountain did. I learned so much doing the burial ground that when I started building this, it started coming together a lot quicker. So I didn't make as many mistakes, and overall I am extremely happy with how this thing came out. With one caveat, I wish I had some better color to use on it. I do now, so the next time I do desert flavored stuff or sandstone, I'll have some better colors to use. This looks great in this light though, and to have the removable top with the little dungeon interior just makes it all the more special. So you can have a big set piece encounter outside, maybe something different on the inside. For me, I chose to have a Marlith who is the leader of a gang of Yuan-ti in a jungle setting, or even perhaps in a, not even necessarily like a South American jungle, but maybe even in a boreal forest. It would make sense in my world anyway. If you like what I'm doing and you want to see this channel continue, consider heading on over to Patreon. Becoming a supporter for only $1 a month gets you access to everything that I offer, including behind the scenes content, Behind the Siege. That would be awesome. That's a new series. I'm gonna start working on that. That sounds pretty cool. It gets you access to all the content that I offer on the side. Sometimes I post templates for things that I make there. It was the stuff that I don't share necessarily on YouTube. A little bit more of an intimate setting too. Plus, I'm really trying to encourage my followers to imitate some of the things that I've done. I would like to see you guys try to make some things and post them, share them with me over on the Patreon page, or even better yet, head over to, you don't even have to subscribe to this, just head over to Instagram, use the hashtag TheDungeonMattster, and I'll see it. And I'd love to
offer an ability for people who watch the channel to interact and participate a little bit in what I'm doing. So if you got some, you know, some crafts, some things that you're making for your role-playing games, your tabletop board games, I don't know, anything, I'd love to see it. I really would. I subscribe to so many people on there. I just love scrolling through and checking out new shit. Coming up, we've got, I'm gonna probably do another poll, look for another poll on my Patreon, probably sometime in early March, maybe mid-March. Just started a job this week. Things are kind of up in the air right now with that. Still trying to get you guys good content weekly. Got a couple of review videos coming up for some products that I bought recently. I want to do some review videos, and definitely some more the good old craft. So everybody stick around. Thanks for helping out. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, hit that notification bell so you know when I'm posting new stuff. All right, take care. Dungeon Mattster out. Bye for now. See ya.